Hello and welcome to the second part of the building, editing and resource harvesting system from Fortnite. In the first part, we looked at how to have this wall preview spawn. You know, when we're walking around, we can see where would the build be, we're snapping to the grid. If you haven't done that, I'll put a link in the description to that video, make sure you do that first. In this video, by the end, you'll have learned how to place the wall and how to do an overlap check with the preview to make sure we're not trying to place on something we've already built. So as you can see, I'm getting a bunch of print strings saying build placed, but if I try and place again on something I've already built, our preview goes red and it's not placing. And if I try and build on myself, it also will not place. That's what we're going to do in this video. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so I'm here in the project we were working on last time. So if I press B and press 1, as you can see, we've selected the build for the wall. We're walking around. Now, to actually make this place, the first thing I'm going to do is make the wall. Because you remember last time we made the wall for the build preview. This time we're going to make the wall for the actual wall. So if we go into our building system folder, into our builds folder, build preview, I'm going to duplicate this wall preview. Just call it BP_wall. And I'm literally just going to take this wall and change, not the wall preview one, the wall, and I'm just going to change the mesh. Or not rather the mesh, actually, the texture on the mesh, because we want all the walls to be exactly the same height. If you remember last time, we had sort of a grid system going. We don't actually have a grid in our world, but we do have a calculation every time we place something that will snap it into a grid-like fashion. So of course everything needs to be consistent in size so it fits together nicely. So now we've got our wall. I'm gonna make a new folder for these, actually. Make a new folder, call them builds. I'm just gonna drag our wall into the builds folder just so everything is nicely put together. As you see, now we've got our BP wall. Now to spawn it, we just need to make a function in our AC_building system. So we'll open this up, go to the event graph, and here last time we made our trace for build. Underneath here, we are going to make a function for placing our build. Now for now, I'm just going to put this on a custom event place build. Although in a little bit, I'm going to change this to an actual input action for our left mouse key. But for now, I'll just have this as a custom event. Of the first pin, we're going to do a branch, because the first thing we need to check is, are we building? Okay, so are we building or not, right? If we're not even trying to enter the build mode, then we definitely don't want to be placing stuff. Because if we put this on our input action of the left mouse, that might also want to trigger different things. For example, we might want to swing our pickaxe if we're not building. But if we are building, then we want to place something. So we want to check, are we building? If we are building, we're going to drag off here and we're going to do a do once node. Now, you might not have to do this. You might find you can get away without the do once node, but I like to add it in here just for 100% safety, just to really make sure this next part only runs once. After this completed pin, we're going to have a bunch of logic, essentially our spawning logic, and then at the end, we're going to call the function, which will reset this do once node. Now, I said call the function to do this do once node, or rather reset the do once node, and that's because if I make a custom event and I just say reset build place do once, and I plug this pin into the reset, whatever we call this function is effectively like dragging a line all the way back to this reset. But I think this just looks a bit cleaner, and we'll see at the end. Imagine if I just had a function all the way over here. I just had a print string, right? You do a bunch of logic all the way through here, you get all the way over here, and then you want to reset it. I just think that looks a bit messy. So that is another way that you might not have known of to reset a do once node. You can just call the function reset build do once, and that resets it. Cool. So to actually place this build, we want to do another check. You see, we're going to be running around in the world, and we've got our preview build out, right? we want to check if that's valid, because let's say we're trying to place a wall, but for some reason the wall preview that we're on just isn't valid. Like, that doesn't make sense. So if that's false, this not valid is going to fire, and we're going to do nothing because we don't want to do anything in that situation. But if it is valid, we're going to spawn actor from class, a bit like what we did, well, exactly like what we did with our build preview. I'll just comment this actually, just to keep it a bit separate. Always good to comment your code. I'll call this build preview. I used to think commenting code was not that important, but it really makes a massive difference. Trust me, because I made this building system in 5.5, so it was quite a while ago now, and I've come back to the code and I guess reviewed and studied it before coming into this series, and it was a massive help that I'd commented all my code, color coded it so I could see which systems go with each. It's really good to comment your code, makes it very readable. Okay, so we're spawning an actor. We need to decide what actor are we going to spawn, where are we going to spawn it, and this collision handling override. To start with, we're just going to set this real quick to try to adjust location but always spawn. This means that if you're trying to place something that is overlapped with something else, it will the engine will automatically try and push the object into a location where it isn't overlapping. But obviously, if it's right in the middle of something, it won't always be able to get fully out, but you will always spawn it just in case. And we definitely want to do this because we don't want any situations where our builds aren't spawning. If you think that if something's slightly overlapping, you don't want anything to spawn, then you could just leave this on try to adjust but don't spawn if still colliding. But in Fortnite, right, if you're trying to build on top of the mountain, so what if you go slightly into the mountain? It doesn't really make a difference. Now for the spawn transform, we already have this because we want to spawn our build in the exact same location of our build preview, so we can get the actor transform of our build preview and just plug it in. Nice and simple. We're spawning it in the exact same place, so we can take the exact same transform. The transform is not just the location but the rotation and the size as well, so we plug everything in, we don't need to split it. And for the class, again, we're going to get the current build preview. I say it again because that's what we did for the other function where we did a select node to select which one we're going to spawn. Again, because we've only set up the wall, for now I'm going to say that all of them are going to spawn a wall, but we are going to fix this later. And I'll just explain actually why I'm just going with the wall to start with. It'll only take 30 seconds. So we could make the wall, the ramp, the floor, the cone all at the same time, and it's really not that difficult because realistically you're just copying and pasting the code for the wall, for the ramp, floor and cone as well. But what it means is every time I set something up, we're going to spend an extra 5-10 minutes just duplicating it. And I think for a YouTube tutorial series, that's definitely going to reduce interest because it's a lot of copy and paste. So for the start of the series, I'm just going to focus on just the wall for now. Building the wall, placing the wall, editing the wall, damaging the wall. And then later in the series, if we carry on, if there's still interest, then we'll duplicate it. But I'm just doing it this way because it is just better for the algorithm, to be honest. People will be more interested to see more new features. So with that in mind, that's why I just wanted you to know that's why I'm only focusing on the wall for now. For the wall class, we're going to search for BP_wall. We're going to do that for all of them. Again, BP_wall, but it will get changed. I mean, I guess you don't have to fill this in if you don't wanted to because you just wouldn't try and place it, but just nice and consistent. BP_wall. This instigator pin, you might be wondering what it does. This node essentially tells whatever's been placed who decided to place it. Now, if you are making some sort of multiplayer feature where everyone sort of owns their wall, and you wanted to have like, if someone's wall gets damaged, then they can know about it, then that might be interesting, but obviously we don't have anything like that in Fortnite. Now we're going to take this return value of the spawn actor, and we're going to promote it to a variable, called current spawned build. So we can just track what is the last thing we just spawned. Now we're going to do a slight delay. I'm just going to do a delay of 0.05 seconds. You could probably just say delay until next tick as well. That would work fine. And then we're going to reset the do once node. So reset build place do once. That function is completed. We're going to wrap this all up, and I'm going to call this rather place build. Cool. Now, like I said before, we need to create an input action for this because right now it's just a function, or rather a custom event. So we're going to go to our content drawer, go to our inputs. I'm going to create a new input action. So right click and search for input action. And we are going to call this IA underscore place build. Cool. So I'm going to go into here. Digital bool is fine because it's are we pressing, are we not pressing? We don't need to worry about access or anything. If you go to our IMC underscore building input mapping context, we can add another mapping and look for our IA underscore start building. Not start building, that was the wrong one. Did that just give me an error? Okay, let me try and make another one. IA underscore place build. So as you can see, everything just like pops open when I'm trying to add that. That's just like an error, I guess, with the engine. If you close everything, like all of it, save it, and then restart the engine, when you come back, it will work fine. I'm not going to restart it, but yeah, I just feel a bit unnecessary at this point. But under place build, we're going to select left mouse button for the binder we want. Go back to the building system, right click, we're going to say IA underscore place build, and on triggered, we're going to get rid of the place build function and plug that in there. You could have also just called the custom event off of this triggered pin. Now if you compile, save, open the editor, if you press B and then 1 to actually select the build. Now we've got the build preview. If we press 1, we place the build. So we can run around, we can place a bunch of builds. Now we are running through the wall, and the reason for that is because to make the wall mesh itself, we duplicated our preview, and the preview had no collision. So if we go to our wall, we go to the static mesh. I'm just going to look for collision. Yeah, here we've got no collision. I'm just going to for now, I'm gonna put block all. We might change that later, because what we're gonna do later is we're gonna have a bunch of checks on our builds to make sure that things aren't overlapping with each other, that they're not you know, going in places they shouldn't be, I guess. But there we go. Right, we're placing our build. That's really cool. We have a problem though, right? You might notice if we're playing and I press B, press 1, we place a build preview, nice. But if I go over this wall again, if I'm looking at the wall, I can keep pressing left click and I can keep spawning more builds. Now you don't really notice it, you can't see it, but I'm just placing loads and loads of walls. Or actually, yeah, because we said always place, didn't we? We said always place. And that's a problem. We don't just want to say, you know, or don't spawn if we're already colliding with something. That's too simple of a system. In our place settings, this is what I'm talking about here. We could just say try to adjust location, don't spawn if still colliding. But I think that is a little bit of a simplistic system, because then we have to actually spawn it. But what I want to do, or rather spawn it and then know we're colliding. But what I want to do is when we have our build preview, I want to check, is our build preview overlapping an existing building? Are we already trying to hover over a build we've already placed? And if we are, then do not allow us to place. So I'm going to go into our building system, I'm going to make a new variable and I'm going to call it can place. The way we're going to do this is we're going to give all of our buildings a box collision. Now, you might remember that in our builds, we derived all of our build previews and actual builds from this base build class. And that's really, really helpful now, because what I want to do is go to this base build, open full blueprint editor, go to the viewport, and I want to add a box collision. Now, actually, we should have probably added the static mesh here. I might do that off camera, go back and add a static mesh here and then replace, it's the same mesh and everything, it's just instead of adding the static mesh here, it'll be on this one, but for now that really isn't a problem. But this box is, because we don't want to have to go and add the box to every single one. I am going to call this box collision, so press F2, check for overlaps, box collision. Compile, save, close of that now. We don't need to mess with the size on that because we're going to change it. There we go. Here you can now see that this wall and this build preview wall, they both have this check for box collision, check for overlaps box collision. I'm going to take a pause in the recording and I'm going to put the default settings on, the default size, or rather the good size so it fits the box, and then I'll come back in just a second to tell you what values to put on. Okay, so I have just set the correct location and scale for both of these wall previews. You can't see the preview on this one because it's inside the wall, but if we go into the see-through one, you can see it when I'm pressed on it, of course. So just make sure I put in the location and the rotation I've got, or rather the scale. It doesn't need to be exact. It's -200 on the X, -0.5 on the Y, 156 on the Z, 0.16 on the X for the scale, 3.7 on the Y for the scale, and 3.7 on the Z for the scale. It's the same for both of the overlap box collisions, the exact same transforms for both of them because the wall is the exact same shape and size. This doesn't go completely to the edges of the wall because I think if you have a little bit of overlap in the walls, it's okay. Like, imagine you're building your base and you're building it right next to a wall. You don't want annoying cases where it's telling you can't place it because you're just touching the wall. So I think a little bit of overlap's fine. And that's why there's a little bit of room on the edges. That's why it's not right up to the end. But make sure, really important, get those values down. Of course, if you get the project files on my Patreon, I've already made all of the walls, all of the overlaps with all the correct sizes, everything fits together perfectly. So even if you didn't want to just get the finished projects, if you still want to follow along and learn, you could get that project and then just use the walls that I created, which are all the correct size, because these ones here, they don't perfectly fit together, and I'm not going to spend ages making them because this is just like the demo project. But in the finished project, I made it so everything perfectly fits together as a proper box. So if you want all of those, you can do it, or you could just make it yourself, just spend 10-15 minutes playing around with the size of the walls. But fundamentally the logic's the same, because we just need to make sure that this check for overlaps box collision and this check for overlaps box collision do not overlap. So in our AC building system, we're going to go back to our build preview, go to the edge after we've set our actor location, and we're going to add a do you want a branch? Not a branch yet. We're just going to make a function which is going to set this can place variable to true or false. We're going to make a function called check build preview for overlaps. The first thing that we're going to do inside this function is we're going to get the current preview builder, and we're going to say convert to validated get and plug in that execution pin. I like to say convert to validated get because I think it just looks better, which I think counts a lot when you're using blueprints because it makes it more readable and easy to understand. But it is the exact same as if I did this. Is valid. You don't need to do this, I'm just showing you. So if I say is valid and plug in that input, these two are exactly the same. You might have already known that, but just in case you're wondering, this is valid and this validated get is the exact same. It's just it's all done in one step, and then you've got this nice little out pin, and you don't have to drag another pin from there. And I think it looks cleaner, and that's why I do it. If you're just wondering what's the difference, there's no difference. It just looks better. So we get the preview build. I'm gonna cast this to BP underscore base build. Now the reason we do that is because we need to be able to access our check for overlaps box collision, and a normal actor doesn't have that. So by casting it to a BP based build, we can search for get overlap, or did I call it check overlap? Check for overlaps box collision. Okay, so if I search for check for overlaps box collision, we can get that nice and simple. I'm going to convert this to a pure cast. And like making a pure function, all that does is it removes the option for an input and output execution pin. I'm going to move this up here. We're going to keep this. So now we've got this box collision. We've got this box collision for whatever build we just have. And that's our preview build, remember. So we've got our preview build. We're getting the overlap on it. So we're getting this box collision. And we are going to check all the overlapping actors. So we are going to say get overlapping actors. The class filter, we're going to leave it empty. We don't need to specifically check if it's one class. We just need to check, are we overlapping something? And if this array, right, if this array of actors is greater than 0, that means we are overlapping something. It means we've hit something. And if we're trying to place our preview build on something we've hit, and we know it's just not a little bit on the side because we've made sure this is in the center, if we're overlapping something, we don't want to place it. So we're going to drag off this, and I'm going to search for length, array length. This is just the number of items in the array. And I'm going to say equals 0, and then I'm going to do a branch. And we can plug in this is valid all the way from the start. And now we are checking, is our overlap box on the preview build hitting anything? Have we got any overlapping actors on the preview build? And if it is true, if it is equal 0, then can place is going to be set to true. If it's false, then can place is going to be set to false. Can place by default is false because we always want to run this check before we do it. We never want to be in a situation where we're placing a build without already having done this check. So if we'd have set can place by default to true, that means that sometimes we would have been able to run the logic for trying to place a build before we'd done this check. And I'm going to put this check right here. Because the variable is updated inside the function, that's all we really need to do for now. And then if you go down to place build, before, when we come to here, yes, at the very beginning, we check, are we building? I'm just getting a bit more room here. We check, are we building? But once we know we're building, we then also need to check, can we place? You could do a second branch, but you can also do some Boolean addition, as I like to call it. I don't know if that's the actual name, but you can add the Boolean. So you can say and Boolean for the building and place. And this means if is building is true and is can place is true, then only in that case fire true. So we need to be in building mode and able to place. And if all of that's true, then we can run this logic. Now, if I played again, you wouldn't actually see a difference because before we were just building on the exact same thing. So I am going to come here, and every time we place something, I'm just going to do a print string and say build placed. Build placed. Compile and save. And now if we go to the map and run the level, every time we place a build, we will see build place. So if I run around and just place a bunch of these, you can see a bunch of build placed. That's exactly what I expect. But if I place a build, and then right now, I'm pressing left click, as you can probably hear. I'm sure you can hear that, and my mouse is quite loud. It's not saying place build, because our overlap is telling us that we're building over something, right? We don't want to place here. Now, we don't really know that, and I think it's good to have some visual feedback so we can see that we're trying to place over something we can't build. So what we're going to do now is we're going to duplicate the preview material, we're going to make it red, and then we're going to say if we're trying to place over something that is invalid, so here for example, make our build preview red, and then if we're in a position where we can't place, the build preview will go red, telling the player that they're not allowed to place there. Let's do that right now. I'm going to go to our content drawer. I'm going to go to our building system, go to our materials folder, this m_build preview, and simply going to press Ctrl D to duplicate it. And I'm going to say m_build preview invalid. Right, this is when our build preview is invalid and we can't place it. I'm very quickly just going to put this to a red color. If you wanted to do something a bit more fancy with the materials, then go ahead. But I think this simple red color is fine. Just, scroll over to the side, get a red color or any color you want, but red's pretty obvious. And then after this check build preview for overlaps, we're going to make another function. We're going to call this set material on build preview. Set material on build preview. We're going to come into this function and we are going to say, first of all, and this is very good practice, we're going to get the current build preview and we're going to convert it to a validated get. Now, you might be thinking by now, like, what are the odds? We've gone through all these functions, right? All these, like, come on. We've probably got a valid build by now. And that's true. We've already checked is valid here, but I think it's very good practice to make each function in a way self-contained so that it does its own check. Now, maybe this isn't 100% optimized performance, and you might want to make slight tweaks, but I think sometimes you don't need to be a complete freak obsessing over 100% performance. You just need to think, is this function, like, does it work properly? Does it do enough checks in itself? And I think you should always check, is it valid? Unless you've got a crazy better system going on. In the event graph, just whilst I'm here, I'm going to drag in this function. Drag it in there, nice. So now we know it's valid, and I'm going to search for set material. Actually, I don't think I can do it. I think I need the build first. We're not going to say set material off of this current preview build, because the current preview build is an actor, and an actor is like literally any actor. We have no idea. This could be anything. This could be PP_third person character. This could be an enemy. This could be a pickaxe object. This could be anything. So before we do that, we are going to cast to BP_base build. Convert that to a pure cast. I like converting to a pure cast just because I think it looks better. And when you're using blueprints, I think that's quite important, right? Just so it looks good. We're going to get the static mesh. Okay, so before I said this might not have been a problem, now we're going to see why it actually is. So on our base build, we don't actually have a static mesh on our base build. We've only got static meshes on these individual wall objects. So what we need to do is go to our building system, go to our build, go to our base build, add a static mesh here, compile, save. Now go to our wall. Now I've got a second static mesh. We can just sm_chamfercube. I'm going to search for sm_chamfercube. We're just going to duplicate this and put everything to the exact same. So yeah, just m_proc_grid. Search for m_proc_grid. We'll make sure the position is all the same, the location. Okay, so I just updated all of these values so they were exactly the same as the other one, and then I deleted the other static mesh, so we've only got one. Literally all I did was I made sure the same values were on this static mesh. I deleted the other one. So I'm going to go to the wall preview, and again I'm going to pause the recording just because I don't need to put it in the video. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take all the values from this static mesh, put it onto the other one, and then delete the other one so we've only got one. I'll do that. Okay, so here I've just finished up making sure they're both the exact same, and then I'm going to delete the second static mesh. Now I've only got one. To be honest, I should have done that from the very start. That is my fault. I apologize for that. That was an oversight on my part. But now everything's good. If we go back to the base build, now we can get the static mesh. We're not gonna get from a function. We're gonna get the variable. And off of this, I'm gonna drag and say set material plugin that is valid. Now I could have done a branch and then put in can place and like have two different set material nodes, but I think it just looks so much more professional if you do a select node. So if I drag off material and search for select and then plug in the boolean can place, in the true pin we're going to search for build m underscore preview build, and then in the false we're going to search for m underscore preview build invalid. What was it? Why is it not there? It was there when I did the other one. M underscore preview. Oh, because I said build preview invalid. That's why. There. So now, if it's true, if we can place, we're going to get the blue. If it's false and we can't place, we're going to get the red. Compile that, save that. We've already got it placed in the event graph. So if we go now to the world. Okay, so there's actually going to be a little problem, but it's literally a 10-second fix. So we can't place it right now. It's all going to be invalid. The reason for this is because we just added new meshes, and I hadn't yet changed to no collision on them. So the collision of the wall itself is interacting with the can place. So on both of the, oh, actually that wall's fine. On the preview, on the wall preview, go to the static mesh, we're going to search for collision. And then we're going to search for no collision like before. And now if we play B1, there we go. All right, when we can place, it's blue. There's an overlap, it goes red, and we can't place. And as we said before, with the print string, you can see, all right, I'm double clicking over the build, but nothing's placing, right? So yeah, there we go. We're placing the wall, right? We had the preview as well. We can't place it if we run over it because obviously we're colliding with ourselves. I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, we've got the preview. We're now placing it and we're detecting with the preview, are we already overlapping something? That's good in this video. Yeah, like I said earlier in the video, the completed project files are on my Patreon. So if you want to download those, you can get those. And it's also a great way to support this series because I mean, without support for the series, I can't make it, right? My channel is not monetized, so Patreon's the only way I guess I earn anything from the videos. I do really enjoy doing them. You know, I made this system like 6 months ago, way before I'd actually been posting the videos. So I didn't make this series just for YouTube. I do really enjoy it. But it is quite important that I guess people see the series and enjoy it. And you know, even if you don't care about Patreon, that's fine. Just watching the video is pretty cool, but make sure to subscribe, and then you'll see the future episodes because I'm hoping to bring these out pretty quickly. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.